Hey everybody, how's it going? This is Josh Ortega, J Ortega Design, and today I'm answering the question, what is design sketching? Now, design sketching to me is the art of taking a drawing or a sketch from a simple line drawing and embedding it with either line weight or function, and I'll show you what that means in a second. So off here to the left, we have a line drawing of a cube. A line drawing is simply an illustration, a representation of an object, right? It doesn't evoke any emotion, and it doesn't really give you much information other than the fact that that is simply a drawing of a cube. So the first tool that we can use to take a line drawing to a design sketch is what we call line weight. You might say, well, what is line weight? Well, line weight is the weight of the line, and what I mean by that is the thickness or the darkness of the line. Okay, so up here up top we have a very light line weight, and as you move down you get into heavier line weights, darker line weights. Okay, I mean, you can almost think of this as from like a 1 to 10 scale, right? And a good design sketch will use most of the range, right? This simple line drawing uses one consistent line weight, and it doesn't really evoke any emotion. So line weight is really key to getting emotion into your sketch. Okay, the second thing that we need to create a good design sketch is some type of function, and it's not necessary to have both of these every time. Line weight is a key. You really need to have that number one, that line weight down, basically every time if you want to have a good design sketch. Function is almost an added bonus. You can have it there if you want it. You should have it there at least some of the time, but not necessary for every single sketch to have some sort of function embedded, and that function really relays some type of information. Okay? So I'll show you. So if we take this simple cube and say, okay, now we want to do a design sketch of a cube, and for the first step, we're just going to focus on the line weight, the emotional part of it. How would we actually add that in, okay? So you'll start almost with that line drawing, right? You really just kind of want to outline it, say, okay, where's my cube going to fall on the page? You say, okay, it's here. Now, how do you use line weight? So the way that I use it is I think of a light source. So if I say, okay, if this cube is sitting outside right now, the sun is somewhere in the sky. So we'll say the sun is here on the upper left, and it's casting light down upon the object, right? It doesn't have to be a cube, it could be a car, it could be any type of product, right? So any of these lines that this sun or this light source are going to interact with almost immediately, these are going to be your light line weights, okay? These are going to fall in this kind of 1 to 2, maybe 3 range. On the opposite end, anything that's furthest away from that light source, right? This line down here, this line in the back, right? These are gonna get your heavier line weights. You can almost think of these lines as being in shadow, right? And then this line, this corner, would also kind of be in shadow, but it would fade as it moves up. So if you think about it that way, and you add in some of these line weights, you'll see what I mean in a moment. Now these lines in the center here, this one, they're almost your medium line weights. These are very light. And then as you move to the back, your line weights get heavier. So this helps to add emotion. It also grounds the sketch. It gives you a sense of where that light is coming from. And you can almost see in your mind, even if you remove the light source, okay, I get it. You know, it's brighter here, it's darker in this bottom corner. Okay? So that's a pretty simple line weight exploration. Now, if you were to add some type of function to the drawing, well, what does that mean? Well, you're really trying to relay some type of information. So if you took the cube example again, right, we'll draw another cube, and we said, okay, now we want to give this some type of function. Well, what type of function could we give it? Well, maybe it's not just a cube, maybe it's a box that actually opens, right? So maybe you need a cut line here, and you say, well, actually, this is going to hinge on this point. Maybe it opens, okay? This would actually come all the way back here. Okay, so that looks a little confusing, but don't worry, we have line weight to help us out. So again, if we think of the sun or the light source being in this upper left corner, anything opposite that is going to get really dark. So using that same example from up above, this lower corner is going to get dark. Okay, it's going to get that heavy line weight, maybe a medium line weight, and then as it rolls from the dark, it's going to kind of fade away into a lighter line weight. That line would now be in shadow because you have this top of the box hinged open, so it's sitting above that line. That line would be pretty light because of the light. And line weight is a great way to clean up a sketch too. So my sketch, if you noticed, was a little messy in the beginning, just trying to figure out, okay, where would it actually be if it were open? When you come in with these darker lines, it takes it from looking messy, and you can actually clean up your sketch pretty effectively if you use it in the right way. So all of these lines are facing away from that bright light source, so they're all going to be pretty dark. This one especially, really dark. Okay, and you might even add a little section line in here, another part of that information relaying by adding those lines. Okay. Okay. So between these two things, the line weight and the function, you start to get into what a design sketch actually is. Okay, so now let's try this on something that's not just a simple cube. Let's try this on something like a car. Okay, so I have just a simple drawing of a car. It's again a line drawing. It doesn't really evoke any emotion, doesn't really give us a lot of information. It is simply a line drawing, right? Okay, so now how would we turn this simple line drawing of a car into an actual design sketch of a car? For this first example, we're really just going to focus on the line weight aspect of it. You could add function to the exterior of a car. You could show doors open, the hood open, you know, a spinning wheel maybe. But for this example, we're really just going to focus on that line weight aspect of it, right? So again, we're going to think that there's a sun or some type of light source in that upper left, and that's really going to drive how we think about the line weight, okay? And a design sketch can be pretty loose. You don't want to be too tight with it. It is a sketch, right? It's just a thought. Maybe the car could look this way. Maybe the product works this way. So we're blocking it in, and you can see it's a pretty consistent line weight just to start. And you always want to start with that light line weight, because obviously if you make, you know, one of these edges too dark, you've kind of screwed the sketch up for yourself. Okay. And maybe instead of just a boring side, we'll add some kind of scoop to it or vent. But again, just starting off with that really, really light line weight. Maybe adding in some details like headlights, some type of grille. Maybe it's got a big mouth on it. You can see I'm also using these lines, these section lines, almost as that second piece of the design sketch, that information sketch, or that information function of the design sketch, where you're showing what the actual section's doing, you're showing what the form is doing by laying down that section line. So even if you don't have a function, like a door opening or like a wheel spinning or something, you can still relay information through the sketch without having some type of action, right? Those section lines are a great way to relay information, obviously about what the form is doing to anybody who might be looking at your sketch. Okay, starting to block in some more details. Okay. Again, still a pretty light line weight. I haven't really gone too dark yet. But we will in a second. Okay, so once you block it in and you feel pretty good about your proportions, about some of these design elements that you've chosen, then you can start to come back and add in the line weight. Okay, and okay, so it's a car, so you'd see through the glass, right? So that's what those lines are. If you saw through the glass, you know, there's a headrest here, but you can see through it. Okay? All right, so then what? Well, now we can start to add some details and add some good line weight to the car. Okay? So again, we're thinking about light source up here. It's going to get darker in that lower right-hand side of the sketch. So this lower line here is going to be probably the darkest part of your sketch overall. Okay? Just like that cube example. It was bright here, but that lower right-hand side of that cube was really dark. And then any type of detail like this, any vent, air intake that's sitting inside the car, right? It's actually recessed into the front end of the vehicle. That's going to be pretty dark, right? Not a lot of light's going to get through to get down to that little detail. So that's going to get pretty dark. This lower edge, obviously dark again, right? And then as the car starts to roll around to that light source, it's going to get brighter. Lower end of that, very dark. Usually the surround of a headlight has a black trim piece. It's usually dark around headlights. So I'll usually add a dark line around my headlights. It's not necessary that you always do that, but it also helps just with the graphic of the car, right? To show off kind of the graphic language that you want. Maybe you darken one of these center lines or cut lines. So these lines are going to be pretty light. And then just like the headlight, the surround of the windows, the DLO, daylight opening, is usually going to be pretty dark. Right? There's usually a black trim piece that runs all the way around. Okay? And then through here, this is probably going to be pretty light. It's just kind of an indication of, okay, there's some type of seat inside this vehicle, right? This light, or this line, I'm sorry, very light, very light. Underneath this cut line, it's going to be pretty dark. Right? It's very much like this line. It's on the bottom edge. Not a lot of sun is going to get through to it. But then as that line turns up again to face up, now it will be a bit lighter. Okay? Pretty light. Just like that front windshield, the surround of your side DLO, it's going to be pretty dark. Okay. Now for the wheels. What are we going to do for the wheels? Okay, we'll go with maybe a 5-spoke wheel. Now if this were something like a final rendering, you'd really want to get in here, detail these wheels out, these rims out, really show off a design that complements the vehicle. For something like a design sketch, you don't have to do that every single time. And I get asked a lot about rims and wheels. What are good tricks? What are good tips just to indicate kind of a wheel or a rim in a quick way? This is one that I use quite a bit. If you look through some of my work, you'll see it pop up fairly often. But there are just a ton of examples out there. I mean, if you search any type of car sketch, car design sketch, you'll see that a lot of people use a lot of different methods to quickly relay like a wheel or a rim. Okay, and maybe there's a little badge here. Maybe there's a little badge here. Just another little piece of information, another little detail that helps kind of bring that sketch to life. Okay, badge here. Okay, so that was a Prismacolor Verithin, and if you'll notice, I'm using two different pencils: the Prismacolor Verithin, and then the Prismacolor Premier. And the Prismacolor Premier is often just referred to as a Prismacolor pencil. This will give you those really, really dark line weights. So when I first sketched the car, I used only a Verithin. And then when I started blocking in the line weights, I switched over to the Prismacolor Premier. The Verithin's great for laying down kind of that first initial sketch because the line weight doesn't go too dark. You can get it pretty dark, but not nearly as dark as you can get a Prismacolor. So it's great just for laying out an idea, and then the Premier is great just for coming back and really blocking in, you know, your thoughts once you've thought about it a little bit and decided that, okay, this is what I actually want to sketch. And the same back here, and you can just kind of indicate it. That rear wheel I found never really has to be as detailed as that front wheel. The front wheel in the sketch is usually going to be the one that people pay attention to the most, and if you can give just an indication in the rear that it's doing the same thing as the one in the front, you know, usually people get it and they're not too picky about how it looks. Then we'll add a dark line here just to indicate the gap between the wheel and the body of the car, the wheel and tire and the body of the car. And again, you can go in there and you can detail out the tread on the wheel. But for something like a pretty quick design sketch, not always 100% necessary. Usually you're just trying to get an idea across about the style of the vehicle, the proportions of the vehicle. Usually don't have to waste a lot of time with that stuff on the first couple rounds. Once you start to lock down an idea, you do definitely want to go in and start to detail out some of those things. Okay, so then you look back. Okay, so if we look at it, you've got your light source here. These lines are fairly light. You can even see here it's still the Verithin pencil. I haven't even gone in with the Prismacolor Premier. I've really just kind of left it alone. As you move up, still Prismacolor Premier that fades right into the Verithin. Verithin up along the top. Very, very light Premier. And then here with these lines that actually will cut underneath. So if I draw a section line here, it's actually going to cut underneath, and the body would do something like that and then pop back out. Right, so anything here where it's going to fold underneath, those lines are going to be dark. Just like here on the bottom of the vehicle, it's going to fold underneath, be really dark. Here where the body's going to wrap underneath and make space for that tire and that rim, very dark. And even your line weight you can really just let fade away in some spots. So up at the top, I mean, we know that's going to be the roof of the car. It kind of fades away unless you've got some kind of crazy fin sticking out of the car or something, but I guess now we do, but we didn't before. Here in the rear it fades away. Right? You really want to draw someone's attention and focus, and a great way to do that is with the varied line weights. So here, if you take a step back and you look at this vehicle, where are you going to look first? You're probably going to look somewhere in this area. Right? We've got the greatest concentration of the white of the paper to the really, really dark line weights, and even inside of this vent now, and in some of the wheels and the rims, we've got a little bit of shading there. And you can use that line weight as a great way to focus people's attention. So if you say, hey, I've got a really innovative headlight, you can really crank up that contrast from light to dark and draw people's attention right in. And they'll say, wow, look at that headlight, really, before they look at anything else. So just to summarize, to create a really great design sketch, you need two things. The first one is line weight. And that line weight conveys emotion through the sketch. And the second thing you need is some type of function or information. So for this example, obviously you can see the line weight change from light to dark using that light source. And then the function or the information that we're relaying through this sketch really comes through these section lines. They show what the body's doing, what the front end's doing, how those details work, how deep those are set into the vehicle. All right, thanks for watching. You can find me on Instagram, Tumblr, and now on YouTube. Thanks.